It's right.
So
it's
if people want to know your name, we should
It's
face
there.
it that way.
Oh, should we flip this?
Yeah, probably.
Well, you also have the public here.
Right.
Hi, public.
So we're recording?
I guess you're right.
We are recording.
Anything else we need to do? Okay. Excellent. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 27, 2023 regular meeting of the Township of Montclair Planning Board. In accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and by sending a copy to the newspaper designated by the township for notices. This meeting is being recorded. It is not being broadcast live at this moment due to technical difficulties, but will be available at some point on demand on YouTube. This meeting is a quasi-judicial proceeding, meaning that the board has powers and procedures resembling a court of law, and we are obligated to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions from them in order to provide the basis of an official action. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Please be advised this is a no-smoking facility. The fire exit is to my right or your left, or perhaps across the room, depending on which way you're seated. As to the order of the evening, we have one application on for this evening, and the application hearing will begin with the applicant and their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required, if any. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why variances are required. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, the attorney, and their expert witnesses. If you are a member of the interested public but not a witness in the case, you will have 2 opportunities to speak. At the end of each witness's testimony, you will be given the opportunity to ask the witness questions about his or her testimony, and that is not the time to tell the board what you think about the application. That'll come later. To ask questions, you'll have to normally come to the front of the room and give us your name and address, but maybe come to the other side of the table and give us your name and address, and then ask your questions related to the witness's testimony only. After the applicant's witnesses and any objector or objector witnesses have been heard, members of the audience will have their second opportunity to step forward, and at that time you may express your opinions, positive or negative, about the application. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person. And with that, we'll move to roll call.
I thought we didn't have an application for us today, because I thought 14 Douglas without.
14 Douglas, if anybody's here for 14 Douglas, that application has been withdrawn. But we do have an application for 103 Grove Street.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. Vice Chair Brodock.
I'm here.
Mr. Graham.
Here.
Mr. Iwali said he would be late. Ms. Lockman.
Here.
Mr. Ortiz is excused. Mr. Pierre. Ms. Willis.
Here.
Mr. Nguyen is excused. Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
And Mr. Neiman.
Here.
Okay. Next up, we have the minutes from March 13th.
I did not receive any changes to the minutes.
Nope. Perfecto.
Note it down.
I like that Ms. Lockman and I look at each other and go, no, they're good.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, next up we have a resolution for application 2631 M M Tylek.
I haven't received it.
I asked him to do it. Now, you folks said what a good guy my associate was.
Said he did a good job at the meeting. Can't speak to what he didn't do after the meeting. So that's you know.
So my apologies. That'll be ready for the next meeting of the board.
Okay.
Does he have to wait for that resolution to move forward on his construction?
No, he can move forward.
He can move forward?
It's just the resolution grants him the protection from any changes in zoning. It makes
Right, so the approval still stands. No extension needed there. Right. Well, now it seems like he can move forward with it now that the township has signed off on it. So again, if anybody's here for 14 Douglas Road, that application has been withdrawn, and we will not be hearing that tonight. So moving on, we have the public hearing on the amendment to the land use and circulation plan, the environmental sustainability section.
You can grab that. Sit down here so you can record our discussion. So following the last month's meeting, the master plan subcommittee met and discussed the master plan amendment for environmental sustainability, and we actually looked at how it integrates into the overall master plan very closely, and made a couple of changes, not very dramatic, but the changes that were listed on the memo that was distributed. On page 65, the last sentence of the last paragraph should be revised to say that the goals of the plan are listed above in section 1.0, called the 5 Big Ideas, and section 1.4, Township Goals. There should be a footnote at the end of the sentence stating the following. These goals were based on a 2011 baseline conditions report, see section 1.1 above, and developed with community input from 2011 to 2015, see section 1.3 above. However, the township has changed significantly since that time, and these goals may not reflect current 2023 conditions or community goals. Therefore, the first recommended change to the policy documents in the sustainability section is to reevaluate the master plan through formal reexamination, which I thought was right on point. Change number 2 on page 100.
Janice, before we move on to that,
Okay.
I just wanted to mention, I sent a note earlier today. Keith, I thought you did a great job with the revisions. I do still think we should reference part 3.0 of the plan element and state that any development should be in conformance with part 3.0.
Which is what?
Which is the height requirements of 4 stories and making sure that, because in the interim, during this reexamination period, an application can still come before us. I think we should note that we still want to be mindful and respectful of the changes to the master plan.
So perhaps, because this change eliminated the goals. So take goal number 1 that was removed, which is direct future growth and development to transit-oriented mixed-use nodes within the township in conformance with 3.0 of this plan element. Perhaps at the beginning of the first paragraph on page 66, we should take that reference and say that perhaps future growth and development should be directed to conform. Future growth and development should conform to the recommendations in part 3.0 of this plan element.
I think that makes sense. Future.
Okay.
So you're saying future development should conform with part 3.0 of the plan element.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I think that achieves what you want.
Yeah.
And then we
So
say,
we're keeping out the transit-oriented mixed use, but we're
I
getting
see.
back
Yeah,
to
that's a good call.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah.
In line with that, the next paragraph that begins, the plan identifies activity nodes. See that paragraph?
Yeah.
I think you should take out more, where more intense mixed-use development is appropriate. I mean, I think we're striving for less development, not more.
Well, it's
Well,
not that.
that's a
It's not that.
weighty statement to make.
Oh, agreed. So I think.
Yeah, I also don't think that's what the sentence says.
No, but I think
Yeah.
what we were discussing in the sub. I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
framing the discussion accurately. What we discussed is that we don't know yet the impacts of all the redevelopment that's already taken place on Bloomfield Avenue. We want to be cautious. We think conforming with the already the changes that we've already recommended in 3.0 is adequate protection while we re-examine the master plan and
Right.
study
Okay.
and determine whether we need to
So,
reduce
right, I get that.
those activity node, the density and all, whatever
Yeah.
other, I guess, redevelopment activity.
I also think that I agree with Jacob. It's beyond debate that whatever everything else is, what can be Bloomfield Avenue can be more. It's Bloomfield Avenue. But, that's all that sentence says.
But I don't think we should make a conclusion one way or another whether there has been too much development or too little development without doing the reexamination
Right.
Yeah.
first.
Right.
Yeah, all
But
right.
we should proceed with caution
Yeah.
regardless, so that's
Good.
what.
I agree.
I don't know if I'm reading this right, so can you take a step back? So in your page 65, you say the goals of the plan are listed above in section 1.0.
Right.
But then you delete them.
No, you got to look
delete-
at the whole plan. 1.0 of the
This is
overall.
being inserted into the
Inserted,
plan.
yeah.
So 1.0 will be, because this is section 2.7, so you'll have
Yeah,
to go to
but-
1. It references the goals in 1.0, which is where they are.
But then
These goals.
Yeah, I get that, but then you're deleting them.
Because they're already
Because
in
you're only
1.0.
referencing
Yeah.
once, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You wanna reference-
Yeah, we didn't
Yes,
want to,
okay.
we
I
didn't want
got
to
you.
restate it,
Yes,
so it didn't look
yes,
like we're
yes,
trying to
yeah,
reemphasize,
yeah,
but
right. Okay.
Because it
Yeah.
can take away from the overall point, which is that this is new and we don't, and things have changed and we don't want to
I get it.
recapitulate.
I just wanted to be clear that they're
Yeah.
not being deleted from here.
no,
They're
no,
just
those
not
goals are not being.
included there.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
they're still exactly the way
As
they're.
they were, yeah.
Yeah, as they were.
So if we're good with that change, the other change is on page 100, which is...
Can I ask one more question, though?
Okay.
Just back to that page 65. You're saying on the second paragraph, the third line, you're saying in strategic locations throughout redevelopment projects that reflect smart growth. What is smart growth? I have,
Better than dumb growth.
I know, but it's in caps, and is it defined somewhere?
It is defined in the state plan. The state plan
In the
defines...
state plan, but it's not defined in this mess. So I'm a newbie reading this thing, and I'm like, what do they mean by smart growth?
Well, okay, I can define the state plan defines smart growth as focusing new development into centers that have existing infrastructure and preserving the more rural areas
Residential areas.
that don't have the infrastructure to support growth.
Yeah, but do you not agree with me that maybe someplace in here it should define smart growth?
I think it is defined in the master plan.
Oh, it is defined.
Yeah.
Just for the record, though, the word smart growth appeared twice. The first is on page 64, and it's not capitalized. It's in F little I, and it says smart growth, which in part shall consider potential locations for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations. And then the second instance is on 65, where it's capitalized. So
Right.
just a little.
That's probably because in the legislation, it's not and the legislation's on page 64, but in the state law, like the state plan, it's capitalized.
But it
So-
does have a specific meaning.
Well, since we're
which I
using
think
the
it
state
should-
plan, we should probably capitalize it. That would make it easier for the public, would it not?
Right, but I wouldn't want to change the legislation, which is what's
Never
quoted
change
on
legislation.
page 64, where it's not
Could we
capitalized.
just put
As
another
defined in the,
another footnote for smart growth,
Yeah.
which references the statutory
Yeah.
basis?
Absolutely, well, we will put it,
Yeah, what I would do is rather than using capitalized on 65, I would put it in quotes, use lowercase, and drop a footnote. I think that's a great idea.
okay.
This is a small.
Is there a list of definitions somewhere?
We're going to add that.
And then we can just put it there?
with a
Excuse me?
footnote, she said.
We're at a footnote.
No, I mean, in our master plan, do we have a list of definitions of what we're referring to? Is that one of them?
I don't know.
It's not.
No.
We have key terms in the plan, but smart growth is not one that's
Okay, that's
defined.
what I was wondering.
I'd go back to the state plan, because
Yeah.
that's what it was all built upon.
Yeah, I think that's a
I think your
good way to
idea of
reference
footnote's
it.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
A small formatting thing. I know the kind of subsections are the little orange arrow, but it's not clearly defined that they're subsections because the font is so similar to the broader top section, and so just finding a way to more clearly define that.
I'll see if we can, we matched the font
Yeah.
to the font that's currently in, as much
Yeah.
as we could, that's currently in the plan, so it's consistent.
Okay.
I gave you, you saw, if you look at the whole
Yeah.
plan, which we copied for you,
Yeah.
how
That's the most compelling reason to redo the master plan.
it's the font.
Carmela's looking for another reason, and now we have one.
I think a serif font would be a little more readable.
I don't even know what a serif font is.
How do I know?
No, I don't know what a
Oh,
serif
it's
font
the, like a Times New Roman,
Serif,
as opposed
S-E-R-I-F.
as opposed to
Oh.
something sans serif.
Okay,
Yeah.
But
okay.
we digress.
I was like, wow, that's a really detailed debate.
We can nerd out on fonts
Talk
later.
about font, yeah. I have
I'm a big
another
believer in Garamond.
question.
Okay.
So, when I was reading this, it jumped out at me on page 67, I guess it's the second full paragraph, when you say in the second sentence, New Jersey is warming faster than the rest of the Northeast and the world. Is there where does that come from? And how is that true? Is there some reference?
It came, I think, from what's,
The footnote in the bottom?
yeah, let's see. No, that's at the bottom. I'll have to double check.
I mean, I just feel like that's a very bold statement. New Jersey is
I can
warming.
cite it.
We
I
have
know
more
it.
local government units and therefore generate an awful lot of hot air.
I mean, it
I
might
like
have
that.
it might have come out of the legislation that required this to be put into master
Oh,
plan.
add the wording exactly from the legislation?
It's possible. I can't
Yeah.
say for
But
certain.
you see what
but
I'm saying? It
No,
does
a
seem
lot
like-
of the data
Oh,
verbiage like that I took from the
Plagiarizing.
NJDEP. Well,
Yeah.
no, I took it from the NJDEP website.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's not the first time I've heard that.
Okay.
No, and the serious thing is because we're the most densely populated
Well, that's
state
what
in the
they
country, and that's therefore the impervious surfaces. It makes sense. That's why we've got the.
Most roads per capita, too.
Still, it's a very...
It's those damn cars.
Everybody were on a bicycle.
You joke, but
I know you don't. That's why.
Okay. Can I keep going with questions, or somebody else want to jump in? Keep going.
Sure, go
Okay,
for
page
it.
69. I just had a question. The last paragraph there, encouraging the use of alternative energy sources such as solar and geothermal power. Do we have any geothermal power use in Montclair?
We do have.
No, they could, sure, single-family houses could if they wanted
Yes,
to.
yeah.
Do we have the
Individual
ability
houses.
to?
I'm
Yes.
sure.
We do?
Yeah, I'm sure.
We've got
school.
lead houses where they
They have done
they
it.
did
Okay,
it. Yeah,
thank you.
so
I was just
yeah.
curious.
It's not that difficult to do.
A friend of mine
Okay.
did their.
It's not that
house,
difficult
yeah.
to do geothermal. There's above ground, there's low underground geothermal. There's a lot of options.
Okay,
There's
thank you.
geothermal, like there's a lot of
You know,
geothermal is very broad.
oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm
This is
thinking
an
like
education
drilling down
for
a
me.
mile and
Yeah.
yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked on anywhere. I worked on one that was
I know you- I know you.
1,500 feet deep.
Call it before you dig.
We did that in Connecticut, but then they have, a residential system would more have like loops where you take the piping, you just
Right.
trench, maybe 10 feet down, you loop it,
Right, just to transfer the heat out. Right, all right, right.
or bring it in if it's.
I just never heard of digging
Heating
down
or
that
cooling.
deep.
The federal government has all kinds of incentives for geothermal these days, so you should look into it.
We need to move to the house.
Can I make another suggestion? I was looking at page 78, and you have, it's about the tree canopy.
Yep.
Tree canopy, but it's those who need more street trees. Okay, so I wanted to reference where that is on the map,
Where what is?
where some of those locations are. So I looked for Valley Road south of Van Vleck, and I can't see where exactly that is. So I thought maybe the four things that you've highlighted here, you might want to just point to on your map so that people can know where you're talking about.
Okay. I think the map, it doesn't show on the map, but it
People wouldn't know.
references the streets, and actually those are actually in the master plan. That's where I pulled it from. Our master plan and the unified land use plan identified those streets as areas that needed additional street trees.
So do they still need additional street trees? So the master plan was done in 2016 or so. I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm trying to figure out where additional street trees are needed, and it seems I can't identify some of those sites because
I don't think
Van
the
Vleck-
plan. This is really is not for use at the street level. This is really more illustrative. The canopy coverage. I mean, I can add it, but I don't really think it's going to help. I mean,
Okay, I mean, I just
And
was
also, I bet
looking
you
at the...
$20 were down trees. I bet you $20 were down net trees
Yeah.
because of all the storms.
this is really so that if we do
People get a
enough,
picture. Mhm.
it paints a picture so that, say, in 10 years, when we do this again, or 15 years, we can compare the tree coverage map.
So therefore, the people who, I think we ordered 250 trees a year or something that we plant.
Uh-huh.
So the people who are planting those trees, they don't look at a map like this and say, we need trees here?
My recommendation is that we do a forestry plan because this may help, this may be but I don't think you can actually use this in isolation.
We do have a forestry plan, don't we?
We have a forestry management plan that
Yes.
nobody can find.
Ah,
I seem to recall
We
that.
can't find
Do
the
you
forest for the
recall
trees?
that? I asked everybody for the forestry management
was
plan,
easy.
and nobody knows where it
and
is.
you talked to
Walk into
Imka
that
Oster?
one.
Excuse
And
me.
you talked to Imka Oster?
I think I reached out to the Environmental Commission. I think it was the two
Suzanne?
co-chairs, and neither
Yeah.
one of them knew. I don't know if I reached out to IMCA.
Because it was Imka, and I'm trying to think of who else was spearheading that back when the Environmental Commission put that together. But I remember reading it. I mean, it has to exist somewhere.
Was that done just by the commission or by like a contractor?
Commission.
Going to say
Because
this
community
seriously,
services-
I expect
the
that Frank
Department of Community
Lubacki will at
Services
some
does
point
not have
watch
it.
this meeting, and Frank,
Okay.
if you have the forestry plan, Janice Talley needs it. Serious request. I bet he does.
I will look, and I'll also ask Imka if she knows where a copy
Okay.
is.
Okay.
And one last question. Okay, on page 83, is the Montclair Center Gateway Phase 2 redevelopment plan available? It's online?
No,
Oh, it's not?
it was never adopted.
Oh,
So
Okay.
if it's not, we just like Lackawanna Plaza, we went so far and then stopped. So I really can't put a plan that was never adopted online.
okay.
Did you have two more? No. Did you get through all the three
No, we
items?
didn't get through.
Sorry.
The other change was on 100 and
Okay.
100.
Page 100, the following should be added as the first recommended change to policy documents. Number 1, prepare a master plan reexamination report that addresses the changes in the township since the last reexamination report was adopted in 2016, with particular attention paid to the impact of redevelopment. And then number 3, the maps were revised to provide more clarity by identifying additional streets and providing a keyed index to redevelopment areas. So those are the changes that we made. Any other questions?
Yeah, what was the one you just
Yeah.
read? I
The
didn't
maps-
see that
Oh.
highlighted.
Number 3, the maps were revised to provide more clarity
It's not, she's saying the third change. She's not saying, there's
Oh,
not
it's not
there's
in
not a
here.
number.
There are more
page.
streets added. If you look at the maps, there's more streets
Oh,
added.
I
That was
see what
nice
you're
work,
saying.
Janice, by the way. I think
Yeah,
it looks a
yeah,
lot
that was
better.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Give Tommy all due credit for
Tommy
doing that.
does good work too.
That
Yeah.
was my suggestion. I couldn't read the street.
Yeah, and now there's more. I think that made a lot of
It made it much
of sense.
clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
So what my recommendation would be is, I think these changes, are very easy to make. And I think if we can make a motion to approve this amendment to the master plan tonight, and I'll make these changes and start working on getting the full document out there, and we'll need a resolution, because I always like to include the resolution in the master plan to document all of the changes that we've made. And I'll get the full integrated plan on the website.
You're going to have the actual changes in the resolution? You want to add those?
No, just put the resolution that memorializes that the planning
Plans-
board
plans
adopted
being adopted.
tonight, and I put that in the front, right behind
Yeah,
the
no,
cover.
I've seen that. I understand it.
But you
you're
don't
not-
have to talk about the changes that we're making.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No.
Just-
I think that these are all very, very manageable that you made this evening.
I didn't see a definition for white plainsization.
Double blind hearsay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the motion double
Hearsay.
Should we do so when we make the motion? It would be
Unsworn double hearsay is what you're looking
that's
for.
the one I was looking for. Thank you. So when we make the motion, we would say incorporating the changes tonight in this document that we have here. Is that how
Right.
we would say it?
Yep.
All right. Who wants to give that a go?
I make a motion to accept the, what's it called?
Environment.
To
The
adopt.
environmental sustainability element of the master plan as revised in the document, the draft document that we reviewed tonight, and which will be updated accordingly.
Probably should say to adopt.
To adopt
the
the environmental
the amendment.
sustainability element.
Yep.
Yeah.
Changes in this document and
And what we discussed tonight.
and
Yeah, I
it's-
think
yeah.
I said that. Yeah.
Okay.
Want me to say it again?
No,
I think we got
it.
I think the intent's clear. I would second, unless, would you like?
By all means.
I would second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Tony, okay. Well, thank you. I think I'm glad that we got this completed. And just to let you know, my staff are working on the master plan reexamination report, and I anticipate it's going to take quite a while. Working with the master plans, there's a lot to go through. So I think we'll probably be working on that the remainder of the year.
Like Janice, the last time we did that in 2016, yeah. So there were sections of it that were assigned to people or 2 or 3 people to look at. Is that how we're going to do it this year?
It might be. I think I have nothing on the agenda yet for the first meeting in April. I was going to suggest maybe we just meet as a subcommittee, or the whole board can meet, and maybe we can just divvy up who wants to adopt the resolution and divvy up the work. You know, make it a quick work meeting. Okay, because it's not just the unified plan. It's also the housing plan, the conservation plan. I don't think we have much to do with the stormwater plan because we just adopted that, and the historic preservation plan too. Tommy's taking a close, and I know that the HPC, we're going to get them involved as well.
Great.
Because I think that they have some concerns about the historic preservation element too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while we have a master plan subcommittee, everybody's going to be working on the reexamination report.
Well, for now, we have some time. We don't have a lot of applications that I have to schedule. So I think we have at least meeting time.
Okay.
Okay.
Seems like a good time to get started.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have new business, the council referral of ordinance 23-09, amending chapter 202, land use procedures to increase the escrow fee for certain applications.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. With respect to redevelopment areas, so once you have a redevelopment plan, and I see we have several in the master plan that are referenced, do they ever, they've been alive as redevelopment plans for years, decades even. So do they ever say this redevelopment plan ceases to exist and we have to start over?
Well, sometimes there's an end date. I've seen redevelopment plans with an end date.
But none of ours have an end date.
No, they do not. Because right now the zoning that's in place for that redevelopment plan remains in place until at such time that the township takes action to put a zone district for that particular piece of property. But I think the way our redevelopment plans are designed, the zoning in the redevelopment plan is specifically tailored to that property, and you really can't remove the redevelopment plan because that's got very convoluted and complicated zoning for those properties. So I don't think there's an end date, but I have seen other redevelopment plans in other municipalities that do have an end date.
Something to consider.
If you put an end date, what happens with this convoluted zoning that you've layered on top of it? Just it becomes pre-existing non-conforming?
That's a good question. You'd have to have, I know with the urban renewal plan for Lackawanna Plaza, over time, what the township did, because that urban renewal plan was basically superseded into the surrounding zone districts. I don't know if that'll happen with our redevelopment plans. I guess it all depends. We have some redevelopment plans like the Mission New, that redevelopment plan. It basically, for the most part, mimics the underlying zoning. It has a couple of other requirements, but it's not very different from the underlying zoning. But most of our more recent ones have very specific requirements, that pertain just to that area. So it depends. Regarding the referral, this is really just to increase our escrow fees for applications pending before the Board of Adjustment, because there's been a slight increase in the legal fees for certain applications. before the Board of Adjustment. And also to and just to clarify that the fee for what's
Can we do this so we
termed,
get our resolutions on time?
for what's termed in our,
Really below the belt, okay?
so another fee for what's termed in our ordinance right now is a fee for properties located in the steep slope zone, which requires engineering review. We're just going to generalize that, and it's a fee for applications that require engineering review.
So I have a question. I'm sorry.
How do members of the public know when their application needs engineering review?
When we tell them.
Okay.
There's certain triggers, if there's stormwater review, if there's steep slope review. When they come to our office, we look through it and we're like, oh, we're going to have to send this to the board engineer. Because if it's more than 250 square feet of impervious, we send it to the board engineer, and that triggers the additional fees. Or if we know there's steep slopes.
It seems to make sense, like if you're in a steep slope zone, okay, I'm there, but it just seems a little nebulous as written, like if it requires review. So if you're trying to think through what it is.
I think that's unavoidable. I mean, I hear exactly what Janice is saying, which is that it is to recoup our costs when the board engineer is required,
Mm-hmm.
and it's required when it's required. I mean, I don't know that we can spell out here in an ordinance all the times where it's required, and I think, if it goes to the engineer, then this is the fee. And I mean, it's on one hand, I think, we need to be careful about putting costs on our neighbors. On the other, having the board engineer review it is an expense, and that should be borne by the applicant, not by taxpayers generally. And Janice, I think we need you to say that this is the right number, because I don't know that, and you do. But I mean, assuming it's the right number and it's not a profit generator, it's actually paying for the board engineer, then I think it's the right.
It's not a profit generator.
No.
Basically, it gives us enough money to pay for the costs, and if there's anything left over, we return it as soon as we can, because I don't want to have to balance those checkbooks, those accounts every month. I want to get the money back.
No, but I figured that was the answer.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think it's right to not have. I mean, it's necessarily a planning department changing set of, look, if we look at this and we say, this needs engineering review, and then you hit them with a fee. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think it's between two options where one is being borne by taxpayers generally, the other is being borne by the applicants. I know where I come out on that one.
It was always borne by the applicant.
Right, but except it's right now it's being subsidized because it's not enough money.
No, they will then have to add to the escrow.
I have to reach out to them.
Right.
And then
This
have
just
to
tries to
add-
save a step.
Yeah.
So if they were paying $500 and every time it's $700 from the engineer, they still have to, as they being the applicant, still have to make up that difference. So this just tries to save that extra step.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question for you, though. Under B, scope of reimbursed services, number 4, the fees are the same for a multifamily building and a non-residential development. That seems, should it, like a two-family house is paying the same fee as a, building a commercial building?
That's just that's just per variance.
I know.
That's not. There's other fees, like a 1 and 2 family house.
Yeah.
It's just they're usually just paying for the variance. If it's a multifamily building, there's almost always site plans. So there's other fees categories that apply to them, but this is just per variance. A variance is a variance.
All right.
How about this example where we just increased we added a limitation on impervious surface of 250 feet. Presumably, the home applicant would come with an engineer who indicates that there's no additional runoff. So that's been done by an engineer. Would that require yet another $750 for someone to say that engineer did their work?
An engineering review of the engineer.
Yeah, there's an engineering review.
So that would require...
An engineer who's already certified that.
There's no, it's the engineering review, and quite often, if there's changes to be made, then they will recommend changes. So that's...
But it's something as simple as that. If someone's adding
That's what
a patio.
that covers all those fees. And the $500 for the variance, I mean, this is not the board engineer.
Oh, it's not the variance, this is just on
Right,
item
that's-
7.
That's item 7.
Yeah.
Item 4 is really, that's what we need to cover our costs.
Yeah, my question was just about 7, though. It seems it's a maximum. Is it a maximum of 750? So if it takes 15 minutes for an engineer to say, this engineer designed this patio of 250 square feet correctly and has put in a catch basin, whatever, to make sure that there's no excessive.
In that instance, the review could be done quickly. They pay the $750. If everything's fine, the engineer review might be $100, and the money
Okay,
gets
so it's
returned.
not.
But
so
I don't.
it says it's a flat 750.
It's a flat $750. It alleviates the need for us to go after and ask for more money and more money and more
But
money.
suppose it's $150 to do that. Shouldn't you just pass along whatever the cost of that simple review was and not charge $750?
She is.
It's
They're giving it back. That's what she just said.
It's a deposit.
It's a deposit. That's
Like
what I
a
didn't understand
retainer.
either.
It's kept in escrow. Here it's in the second paragraph.
Oh. Okay.
Here you go.
Are there any other comments? I think what the council is looking is this approach. I mean, these fees is whether or not this is consistent with the master plan, and I think
What does it have to do with
So
the
they
price of
mentioned-
beans? I mean,
Yeah, what does that have to do?
because I gather it was referred to the township clerk referred it to the planning board. Perhaps a statement that you understand the level of review that's required for various applications,
Just a rubber
and
stamp.
that these fees, which if not used, are refundable or reasonable.
Does it ever go above that price in fees?
Oh, yeah. Arthur?
Dang.
You know, I sometimes
Not
have to
our
ask for
dad.
more
He's an
money.
engineer, and he was giving grief about the extra cost.
Yes,
Well, I guess
sometimes
it's
it goes
presumed that
above.
it's a
And you
deposit.
charge
Yeah,
accordingly.
deposit.
I don't charge, I request additional additional
Right,
funds.
right.
I mean, normally it's fine, but sometimes there's things that are unanticipated.
Right.
How many
Extraneous.
times would you say you have to request additional funds,
That's what I'm-
escrow funds from applicants?
About half the time, about half the applications.
And this will
Yeah,
alleviate
that
that,
many?
this will alleviate that burden substantially, I
little
would
bit.
imagine. A little
Yeah.
bit, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, that's not
Yeah.
an insignificant amount of applications.
So
Okay.
Dennis, I'm curious, like, just the
Look out.
origin of this kind of ordinance. Does this come, like, is this from your office to the council, or does somehow the council understand what's going on here and generate this? Because it's like a land use thing.
This
And
came
does the
from
council-
my office
It did,
because I
okay.
realized I was getting
Yes,
the
yeah,
bills
thank
and I
you.
was
I
like,
thought
oh,
so.
our fees are not
Yeah.
enough to cover the bills that are coming in. I don't think these are significant changes or
No.
significant increases.
I'm
Well,
just
it
kind of
could be, I
curious
mean,
of the origin of things. Like,
Yeah.
how do we get something like, when we looked at, what was the other thing we looked at last go-round? It came from the EDC, and we were wondering, why is that not generated by us? So that's what I'm wondering.
Right, so
This is generated by
these
you.
came from me,
Thank
yes.
you.
Yeah, I mean, $500 is not nothing, but I absolutely,
It's going
it
from
can be a burden.
It's going from
But
250
I
to
understand it,
500.
and look, if these applications are hitting that threshold half the time,
Right.
it just makes sense so that we're not overburdening your staff also, your
Right.
office as well. I think it's reasonable. I think we should. What do we say that it's consistent with the master plan?
The planning board saw no inconsistencies with the master plan and had no other objections to the ordinance.
That sounds good.
Perfect. Do we vote?
Just need,
Sure, why not?
a motion that you support the ordinance.
Motion to support the ordinance.
Second,
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
So I had a question about the information in the planner that was sent out. It said that there's a new bill here that says the municipalities are required to complete building inspections within 3 business days of a request by developer. that's something that's going to apply now to Montclair, where we're going to have our building inspections done in 3
I
days?
expect so. I haven't had a conversation with the building department about it, but I expect so.
And when you say developer, does that mean a small, property, or is it just large developments, or?
I really don't know.
You don't know, but that's something you'll have to.
There is a
do.
citation to the actual legislation.
Okay, thank you, I didn't get that far yet.
Okay.
Okay.
No, because I hear that that's a problem, that people.
How could it not be?
Yeah, how could it not be with all the development?
Right.
So all of a sudden, we're imposing this on the municipality, and are we prepared to be able to do this?
And the municipalities
knows.
are going to enter
Developers
into
can
contracts
self-certify.
with private inspectors.
Right, yeah.
Also a problem.
Dubious,
You're
yeah.
suggesting that the legislators are using a mandate on municipalities?
All right.
Yeah.
Next up, we have application 2838 for 103 Grove LLC. I guess, Mr. Skolik, you can.
Thank you. Is it okay to sit here?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, the microphones up here should be able to pick you up if you and your experts approach the table.
You may have to
You might
bring
bring
another chair
There's a
over.
green one.
Yeah.
In the office, I keep one at home.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. I'm representing 103 Grove LLC. Most of you may recall that Grove secured site plan approval for a self-storage facility last year, approximately 73,644 square feet. The resolution is dated March 14th of 2022. We're here tonight to clarify the record, to make some technical corrections, and to update some issues concerning the site access. We're not proposing any changes to the site plan in terms of lighting or construction or anything like that. It's just the access. It was a little bit complicated. There were some issues with the survey, and we want to clarify and make sure the record is clear. We're going to give you a status report. My client is still in negotiations with New Jersey Transit to get an updated agreement with Transit so that everybody's rights are clear. And we thought, after careful consideration, it would just be best to have my client, Andrew Ahinger, explain where we're at, how we got here, with some maps, and then obviously take your questions and see where we end up in terms of trying to move the project forward. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Andrew, you want to come up?
You want to pre-mark exhibits
Rick,
before we?
I think I'm going to go through the pre-mark the exhibits,
It's up to you.
just so that, because I assume you got new exhibits to mark.
We do have these.
No, two are just blown up exhibits from what we submitted, and one was from our previous site plan approval hearing. So I don't know how you would treat that.
Was it marked at the previous hearing? I don't think so.
I do not.
We can remark it to be on the safe
Let's
side.
do that.
All
Let's
right.
make sure that we have a clean record. We'll do it right as if it's a new application.
Okay. A1 is the application, A2 is the certification of taxes paid, A3 is the proof of publication, A4 is the affidavit of service. There's a lot of exhibits here. A5 is the letter from Rick Skolnick dated February 27th, 2023 that accompanied the application. A6 is the request for a tri-party agreement along New Jersey Transit from New Jersey Transit dated July 14th, 2022. A7 is an easement license sketch from Petrie Engineering. I can't read the date on this, but it was received March 8th, 2023.
I don't know if I can read it from here either.
I think that's good enough.
I
think that-
the plan is dated February 22, 2023, the easement license sketch.
You can read that?
Well, I have it in my letter.
Oh, okay. What's the date of that?
February 22, 2023.
Okay. A8 is the existing conditions photo, marked March 8th, 2023. A9 is a two-page survey, title, commitment, legal description, prepared. Is this a reduction of of the large survey by Craig Black? It's the Alta and SPS land title survey. It's 3 pages.
Is that Gallus survey?
No, it says dynamic survey.
Okay.
Is that 2 or 3 pages?
I've got 3 pages.
It's 1 page.
They were 3 pages that were submitted and they were stapled together. I can't read what's on these pages. The Gallus survey is attached to it. Should I mark them separately?
The dynamic survey is 1 page.
Okay. So I'll do the dynamic survey would be A9A. The
Okay.
Petrie properties marked would be A9B. And the Gallus survey will be A9C. Okay? The legal description, Schedule A, is A10. Now, this is the large-scale easement license sketch, A11. I don't know if this is the same as the 8.5 by 11.
I believe it is.
All right. Well, this one I can read. Petrie Engineering easement license sketch, dated 2/22/23.
Yes.
A11. The Gallus survey. It was prepared February 17th, 2023. Revised 2/20/23 is A12. And A13 is the report from Boswell Engineering dated March 14th, 2023. Sorry if that was confusing. I'm sure you'll straighten it all out.
That's our goal.
Good.
Okay, can we swear Andrew in?
I think so. Sir, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Andrew Anger from Storage Deluxe, the owner of 103 Grove Street.
And Andrew, if you could just describe for the board your involvement in this project and your familiarity with all these documents.
Sure. Since we acquired the property back in, I think it was June 2021, I've been on the site plan approval process. I've helped with the negotiations with all the neighbors, including a reciprocal easement agreement with Bob Silver. I've been dealing with New Jersey Transit. Basically, all things title, development, access related on behalf of our company. I've been kind of leading the charge.
Okay, you're the most familiar person with all of the survey issues and the issues with Mr. Silver and New Jersey Transit. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. Could you walk the board through what happened,
Sure.
how we got here, the issues that we encountered, and how you're endeavoring to resolve those?
Sure. Maybe I have a little quick. I'll try and keep it brief. Please let me know. Sometimes
You want to get a little bit closer to the microphone? So.
Sure. Is this better? Can you pick it up?
Fine, and you can pull up a chair too if you want.
Get out of your way.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, please do.
That's- You might be more
Excuse
comfortable.
me.
Thank you.
No problem.
In Westchester, they don't let you sit down at these board meetings, so I appreciate your hospitality.
We're serving beer.
Continue the white plaintification that may change.
Well, so it's nice to be here, and thank you for having us. Our entire hearings last year in March were all virtual from my bedroom in my one-bedroom apartment, so it's quite a change to be here in person, and quite preferred too, from having dinner being cooked and the fire alarm going off during the board hearing. It quite literally happened. So I'll just jump right into it to try and refamiliarize the board a little bit with the self-storage application.
I don't know that you have to.
Yeah, please. I mean, I heard there were some new board members, so I just
because I think we may have new board members since then. So
Yeah.
give us just the real quick.
okay. I'll
sketch.
try. I'll try my best. So In 2022, in March, we were approved, and some of the main tenets of the application and self-storage in general are it's a very low-impact use and a quiet use. We do not add any students to the school system. It does not have a major impact on the public infrastructure and utilities. And furthermore, I'm proud to say this facility was very thoughtfully designed from both an engineering and architectural perspective. It was designed to look aesthetically pleasing with a brick look up front and really fit within the context of the neighborhood. And we believe it to be a great fit for the community and are ready to get it built. Regarding access, do you want any more on the project, or
Nope,
just
I think
jump
let's
into
go on the
access?
project.
Low
Okay.
traffic, you said as well, right? The low traffic impact as well, you said.
Yeah, low impact, yes.
Yeah.
Low traffic as well, yes. So I'd like to start off on access, just saying, we're sorry and I apologize. We were here last year and we are back to clarify any confusion that we caused. It wasn't our intent to confuse anybody. It was, honestly, just it was not our intention. We're sorry. We're here to
Not to
clear.
put too fine a point on it, you said you had an easement that you did not have.
That is
It's not confusion. It was a false statement of fact made part of the record, and you're here to correct that. And
Yes.
and we appreciate that, but I don't want to sugarcoat why you're here. I mean, you said there was an easement and there was not an easement.
Yes, that's correct. And to that end, that is totally correct. What we do have now today is, so it was 10 feet or 9.9 feet from Bob Silver, 105 Grove
Want to
Street.
get the drawing?
Sure.
Why don't you just show what's physically out there first? That might make some
Want to see the
sense.
photo?
So that
You?
photo's A8.
A8, correct.
Yes.
So this is the property as it exists today, and by the property you can actually see 107 Grove Town Auto Body owned by Joe Pastore here. Kind of right in front of this white vehicle here is the beginnings of access onto Grove Street from the owner of 105 Grove, Bob Silver, that runs all the way back kind of at an angle to this telephone pole here. And then our property begins. It doesn't have any legal frontage within its own boundaries onto Grove Street. It's a little triangular piece of property there. And then the rest is the New Jersey Transit right-of-way, all the way leading up into kind of towards this vehicle at an angle. And so we had presented at the previous hearing 9.9 from Mr. Silver via easement, which we still have today. And we had presented 10 from on New Jersey Transit property. We're back here today presenting 22.9 feet from New Jersey Transit, which we have via a conditions letter, transit LOI of sorts, that allows us into, sets out the basic terms for an agreement with them to enter into a license to use the property. And so that's where we were, and that's where we are today.
Okay, you want to now just bring it down into the drawing?
Andrew, that was 22.9 feet from the proposed license agreement with New Jersey Transit. Is that what you said?
22.9, yes.
I'll make sure I have my notes correct.
Okay.
That 22.9 is what you will get pursuant to the license.
Pursuant to the license.
In addition to the 9.9.
In addition to the 9.9, that is correct.
So what's just the total number to keep it easy?
Call it 32.8.
Okay.
So why don't you just start with your property first?
Yep. So in red, bounded in red, is our property. In blue, it's not bounded, but is the edges of Bob Silver's property here. And you see his buildings kind of back here and here.
And this is Exhibit A7/A11?
That is correct.
Great.
And then if you can believe some of the confusion that happened, we actually now have 2 easements on Bob Silver's property. We have this easement in magenta, which is also part of the same agreement, which is a reciprocal agreement with Bob, where we give him property in checkered area here, and he gives us his property in magenta here, which connects us all the way to Grove Street.
Okay, and that was item 12 in my submission letter, Janice. I don't know if you'd remark that as an exhibit.
All right, let's see.
And
And is
then
that new?
you want to make
from-
that?
Is that new for today's
this is
application?
no, this is
That
what
was
we
there,
presented
that we
at the
approved.
previous
Yeah,
hearing.
okay.
That is what you approved, yes. And now and on top of that, we do have this 10-foot wide right-of-way also over Bob's property. We think it just made sense to widen it and expand it. We're both driving over each other's properties. We've built a good rapport and relationship since we've owned the property, and just thought it was best to clean things up. And so on top of this, now there is this area in dark blue, which is the proposed area under the conditions letter right now, under which we will hope to sign a license agreement with NJ Transit for. The status of the license agreement is we signed the conditions letter in July 2022. It has been a long process to get there, or to get here. And we are finally, I think, at the finish line. I hope at the finish line. We have turned the actual 20-page license agreement with comments to Transit. And as of Friday, I heard we were expecting comments back from Transit, either rejecting or accepting our proposed markup of the document. And I was told that they'd be ready to execute it this week if they're able to get it to us. I don't know what position we'll be in. Hopefully the changes are acceptable to us, but I imagine they will be. It's unfortunate, but NJ Transit, you don't really have much of a say in the terms they give you. It's just a quasi-governmental agency, and they're not budging on some of the terms. So maybe I'll jump into...
What happens if they don't accept your revisions?
We accept their form document. They've used it everywhere else, and we just have to live with their changes.
But what are the potential consequences of that to your ability to access your property and use that easement?
Sure. So the physical area hasn't changed. We're agreed on the physical area. So we said, we want this area in blue, and they said, okay, it's the same as you see in the conditions letter. We asked for changes to more legal language, indemnification, we had some changes that we wanted to ask for, and we figured let's just try and ask for everything we can and see what they'll give us.
But none of those changes that you're talking about impact the right-of-way, any of your ability to access your site. Your changes are not related to the actual physical area?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So in other words, if
It's more if you sue each other, right?
if they reject everything, you're going to still go ahead with their review?
Yes, that's correct.
Gotcha.
And also, we're working with Bob, so it's a tri-party license agreement that we're trying to execute. Mm-hmm. And there's some things Bob wanted, some things that we agreed we should ask for. And so we asked for it, and I think we're going to get some of those changes, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. But it's more on the legal side, less so on the physical access side and actual premises. We're not proposing any changes to what the conditions letter proposed.
Just want to mark, I found the reciprocal access agreement and marked that as 814.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as you know, is Mr. Silver, will he accept if all the changes are rejected that you've requested?
As far as I know, I think he almost thought it was a little bit of a fool's exercise to try and force comments at NJ Transit. And in hindsight, maybe it was not the best use of time, especially given where the world has gone. we only got the initial clean copy of the draft in last week of January, so it's only been about 2 months since we actually got something to chew on and work on. But I believe so. I haven't heard anything contrary to that.
We had a funny anecdote because New Jersey Transit has outsourced its legal work. And I kept getting inundated with ads on LinkedIn for that position from a firm called Greystone. And the job description was, we're an outside company and we need some lawyers to draft documents for New Jersey Transit. And as we're working on this, they start coming at me every couple of days. It was a little entertainment in an otherwise difficult situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and to that end, there was actually a fundamental change in their license agreement structure and their form, and we unfortunately just got caught up, a victim of their process. We had to, I think they almost were ready to issue it, and I don't know if they hired it. They brought in something to do with Greystone and bringing in part of the legal in-house and outsourcing part of the legal, somehow changed their form document, and it took an extra couple of months because of that. We were pushing as hard as we could. We really want to get this thing built. So I'd like to now use the Boswell engineering letter. It's just a framework to talk about a little bit more of the conditions letter and any other questions or concerns on the license agreement. So I believe number 3, I've summarized the modifications and the status. The expected time frame, I hope, is as soon as next week, the week after. Could be this week. With transit, you really never know. In terms of modifications, I should say, we aren't proposing any changes to New Jersey Transit-owned property. We aren't touching it. The driveway as it exists today is going to be the driveway as it exists tomorrow after we own this. Even trying to go through the process of doing work within the transit right-of-way would be quite a tough task with all the insurance requirements, and it's not necessary.
So if you wanted to pave that?
Yeah, it is paved. No, it is paved.
Well, if you, I see, like, repave it, fix any holes, what happens?
Well, so that's one of the
Yeah.
pieces of language that we asked for that I think we're going to get, which is basic maintenance and repairs, asphalt. Hopefully we don't have to go through the long insurance plan approval process with transit. Right now, it's
You're going to define asphalt as a minor repair? Good luck with that.
Yeah. We asked for it, and
Okay.
I think we got it.
So you're going to repair it, your company?
Yes,
Not,
so,
not New Jersey Transit, okay.
Part of the terms is we're responsible, 103 Grove, for all maintenance and repair. Bob Silver is not responsible. We took the onus on us just to not have any ambiguity in that.
So you're not going to delineate that driveway any further than what we're seeing here now? Is that basically correct?
In the transit-owned portion, that is correct. In our portion, which extends past this truck here,
that's further back.
That's further back. But in the
Somebody's got to
transit-owned,
know what they're turning into. And that's what he's
in the transit-owned triangle, we're not touching it.
So it's going to look like this?
Until transit makes
Can I show you my proposed? So I need a new exhibit number, I guess.
Oh, that would be 8:15.
For tonight.
A15.
What do you want to call this, Andrew?
What's that?
What do you want to call this? Photo simulation.
Yeah, photorealistic rendering. This
You have
was.
to leave that with me.
Oh, okay. No problem. You should already have it back from March of last year.
Oh, this is last year's?
It's a
Yes.
repeat of what we showed during
I
the
figured
hearing.
I'd blow it up.
They call it 8:15. The more the merrier.
So
We have plenty of escrow for a lengthy resolution.
maybe I should just do top and bottom.
I'm really taking it too much on the chin.
Can everyone see that? Just the contrast. I don't know if there's a little reflection here. But this, as it remains, as soon as it's our property, we bring in a curb cut and, we start landscaping as the board requested to try and put a buffer on that side of the property and create an entrance.
I'm concerned about the sidewalk. So it looks like where the sidewalk is there, you've got some holes or, it's not level, and people do use that sidewalk. Not the sidewalk itself, but where the driveway
cut.
is.
The
Yeah,
driveway.
the curb
With
cut.
it
Yeah,
from here to
that,
here?
Yeah, people use that. It's quite a pedestrian trafficked area.
Sure.
So is anybody going to fix that?
Currently,
And there's been no traffic on this site for years.
Yeah.
So you're going to start having traffic, and it'll get worse, and so you're going to fix it?
I think we're open to repairing that area as New Jersey Transit will let us. We'd have to, submit formal
I have the
plans.
sidewalks probably on county property.
Yeah, I actually think that's right. It's
It's not on the applicant's
I think Carmel was worried about the entrance itself.
The entrance
right?
where it's asphalt, not
Yeah.
sidewalk.
right here.
It's that,
I think
yeah.
that
That's
part.
the Grove
But
Street
that's-
right of way.
Yeah, I
That
think
is
that's
not
still county.
transit.
That's but that's not New Jersey Transit.
Oh, that's still
The question is, can we make them improve the
Yes.
entrance if it's on county property, because it's not on transit property?
Yeah. Because I think somehow that needs to be repaired. Yeah.
I hear you, I agree.
Yeah.
Is
Because
that
usually
Bob
the sidewalks
Silver's
on-
bollard?
in right-of-way.
That's technically in the Grove right of way as well.
So I think that's since New Jersey Transit's not part of that, we can make that improvement. Or having it
Sure.
improvement.
Yeah, we're certainly willing
Okay,
to.
that's a condition. The other thing is, so that people aren't, I live around there, so that people aren't driving all around the neighborhood. They can have some sign that will direct people right there. People have to know where the,
If you recall,
yeah,
the
I'm
issue-
kind of recalling.
recalling,
Yeah,
this is what I do for a living. There's just going to have to be a little element of trust because we can't have an approved sign on property we don't know, but there will probably be something out there. that
We
people
certainly
can,
ask Transit for the sign.
You know,
They are currently limiting it to,
Right.
vehicular and
so can
pedestrian
you show
access.
the board? But they're going to want to have some signage and.
yeah.
There is a, I don't know if you're able to pull up Google Maps Street View, Jan. There is on the other side of the tracks as you're traveling south on Grove Street. There is a billboard that
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Outfront Media owns it or has rights to it. I've spoken with them. We want people to be able to safely access and find our property. And I think in the first few years, we would like to somehow use that to let people know we're there. And whatever we can to. This is, if you recall, that's why we put the sign so high on the
And we
building.
made the bigger, I think. We made the lettering bigger.
Yeah, we made
Right.
we had a couple of variances for the height of the sign as well as the square footage or size or something of the letters in order to do as best we could to identify the property. Unfortunately, it's a unique piece.
Well, how can we address that, Janice?
Sign?
Yeah, can we do
Well,
anything
I don't
about
think
that?
I know we talked about it during the site plan
Yeah.
hearing, and there really is no
Still-
place
still
to
a
put
ways
it.
away.
And that's part of why we put it
I
on
mean,
the
look,
building.
it's a little bit like when we talked about Summit Health. The first time they're there, they'll find it, and then they know where it is. And then,
The sign could be put on the 105 property, couldn't it? Because that 9.9 feet, that's part of the entrance, so that would not involve transit. It would need to be on the left-hand side where that white car
In the
is.
easement
but
area.
You still could have an ability to negotiate for sign without asking transit.
Maybe something on the fence or something as you're traveling north. You could
You've got
perhaps
9
see
feet
it.
of width, and you're just dealing with one neighbor, not transit, so it's possible. Probably not the ideal place for it, because it's before. Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Better than nothing.
But I think
yeah.
it's also set back too, right? It's the edge of the concrete. It's not even the edge of the right of way. And I'm going to look at
No.
Mr. Petrie to perhaps confirm something like this. But it looks like from the survey, it's still another foot or two back to the property line from the edge of the concrete.
That is correct.
Thank you. So it's any, unless it's going to be in that right of way, which if that's possible, great. If it's not, we're talking about Mr. Silver's property, it's going to be significantly back from the roadway.
I have the street view behind you.
Yeah, it's a pretty clear line of sight there. And so if there was a sign on the, I guess, the railroad side of things.
I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I
There's a
can't-
little
I can't
sign
get
for
to it.
105, isn't there?
There is, yeah, there
There-
is a sign
yeah.
for 105,
I
yeah.
don't know why. I think it's just perpendicular to this image.
I mean, I can't get too excited about this. I think it'll be fine.
No, it's right there. It says
Well,
105.
As somebody who lives in the area,
Oh,
they don't
there,
want
yeah.
trucks driving all around trying to find the
Small right
place.
next to the ball
They're
there.
not
I
gonna- I don't want trucks, period. But that's, we talked about that at the
Well,
site.
people
site plan
bringing
hearing.
new wall with their stuff to go into the,
Excuse me, you indicated you would have 32.8 feet, the 9.9 plus the 22.9, correct? In that photograph, show me the 32.8 feet.
It goes to the edge of the pavement.
To where?
Up to the curb cut, all of the frontage up till Bob Silver's own property, and then, loops back.
Well, that's the transit. The transit piece is the 22.9.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and then Bob's is the 9.9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so across the mouth of this photograph, where is the 32.9 feet? 0.8 feet.
Where your fingertip was.
It's essentially
Is
the
it-
entire existing paved area.
So it's from the bollard to the edge of the pavement.
Yes.
Well, the survey goes a little bit further. It looks
Yeah.
like it lines up more with the gate.
You want to just put that back up?
I agree with Mr. Wally.
the actual gate with the yarn.
That's what the survey.
That's what the survey shows. And it's
So some of it that's not usable.
correct. And it even, on Mr. Silver's property, it looks like it extends a little bit more to the left of the bollard. So that is a question I had too, is what's the bollard to bollard
Right, what's the
opening that somebody
What's
could
that
drive?
opening for a vehicle? Because I don't think it's the 32.8.
You mean from the bollard to
But I
the
think it's
usable
important to
area
know
on the
when
right-hand
Yes.
side?
Being told it's 32.8,
But it's
what
not
actually
opening.
is that opening? That's what
We're going to see if Mr. Petrie can help us out here. Maybe he has a ruler, I don't know. Can we get him sworn in,
Well, it's
please?
scalable. It's got to be scalable.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't see
Can we swear in Mr. Petrie?
Yes, we need to. Mr. Petrie, you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name and business affiliation for the record.
J. Michael Petrie. I'm a principal with Petrie Engineering in Fairfield, New Jersey.
Okay, and you prepared the exhibit that the board's looking at right now,
That is-
A7/A11.
That is correct.
Okay, and you have some expertise in civil engineering and all that?
A little
Mr.
bit.
Chairman, he's been recognized before this board.
We'll accept them.
I appreciate that, thank you. Okay, Mr. Petrie, do you have your handy dandy ruler?
Yes.
To try, you understand the question?
I do.
Yeah. So,
Where's the bollard on that survey? That's the question, because then we can measure the.
The closest item appears to be the sign that was just pointed out. It actually is closer than the bollard. The bollards are shown on this. It's at a bit of an angle.
Yeah, no, look at the
if
picture.
you look at the picture, it looks like it's the same.
Looks like the sign is on the bollard.
Look at the picture.
Right.
The sign looks to be to the left of it, of the bollard.
And Mr. Petrie, if it's
No,
if
there's
it's
a
helpful
different
too.
sign.
Okay.
This is one of the signs that the board is referring to, is this 105, which I think doesn't show.
It doesn't, it's not here. You
Yes,
can't
it's
see it.
Oh, yeah, the white.
side of it, the white.
Right.
thing.
But the other is a sign as well
Okay.
for coming out of 105. And So the distance between that and the closest bollard, scale on here, was about 28 and a half feet.
Are you calling those silver pieces of metal bollards?
Yes. That's how they were labeled on the survey. So probably I-beams driven into the ground.
Looks like they're I-beams.
But they're acting as bollards to protect that mast arm.
And so what was the vehicle opening?
28 and a half feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Letter, plausible letter.
Okay, moving on to number 4, the applicant shall confirm any modification to the site's previously approved engineering, architectural design elements, layout, driveway, curbing, walls, drainage, parking, building, etc. No modifications are proposed. Number 5. The applicant shall address condition number 5 from NJ Transit regarding license revocation at the discretion of New Jersey Transit. So within the conditions letter, which is exhibit
Oh, that's exhibit A6.
A6, point number 5, it says, the license will be revocable at the discretion of New Jersey Transit. In the license agreement, it actually says at the sole discretion of New Jersey Transit. So that's and obviously something that caught our attention when we first received this. And
the legal term for that is poof.
What's that?
Technical legal term for that is poof.
Which one? Sorry.
When their sole discretion it just goes away. Poof.
Understood.
We'll define that.
And so I'll start by saying this has existed in such a condition for a very long time.
Don't finish the sentence. It's not. You can't promise that.
I'm not.
Well, but you're about to. I mean, when they say that, they mean. I mean that they could, for any reason or no reason, in a year, in 10 years, in 20 years, just say we've decided to build a fence, or we've decided to do something else, and you just. We need to bear in mind that could happen, and you need to bear in mind running the business that could happen. And there's not a thing you can do about it.
That's correct. We think the odds are low, but you're right.
No,
it could happen.
I don't disagree with you, but it's the bear has been poked.
Yes.
And things happen.
To that end, we tried to ask for it to be an unrevocable license.
And they said
no. Yeah. We asked for more than certain. We asked for greater notice. It seems like they may say no on that one. I don't know.
I do.
And we actually went to the deputy attorney. I'm forgetting the exact term.
She used to work for me.
Yes.
That's why. Yeah.
Thank you for. I mean, we appreciate you,
Caroline Bashir.
And yes, she was very nice. We tried everything we could do to address this concern. It is not just the board's; it's ours, and it's certainly germane to this application. So we did everything we could.
No, I get. I mean, look, I continue to be a supporter of what you're doing here. I think that there is no higher or better use of this really weirdly shaped property in the corner of nowhere. I think you've done something very creative with it, and I think it's a terrific idea. I am bothered by why we're here, and I think that you're a little bit stuck with the transit situation as you find it. I think that that's an issue, not an ish-us. And I think that you're opening this in understanding that if that driveway in 20 years were to go away, you've got a problem that can't be fixed. the only thing that I have a concern about is I think we can give you a lot of what you want tonight, but I think that if you are in fact close to getting the deal done with transit, I think our approval should really wait until, I think we can approve it conditionally and then have it spring into existence when the transit letter is done, but I don't just want to say go and then find out in 3 weeks the transit changed its mind. I don't think that they're going to, but
Sure.
I'm glad we're here today. I think we can get you to the point where you don't have to come back here once you provide the final transit letter.
So this has been the subject of discussions between myself and Mr. Skolnick a lot over the last several months. And so do you want to express the applicant's approach to this now in the event we do approve, the board does approve it?
I'm going to let Andrew talk.
I think, that was a very clear explanation. So I think a conditional approval, we asked for that condition to be subject to, before we get a certificate of occupancy. I don't know if the board finds that acceptable, but that was our ask, so that we can file permits. We have full construction drawings. We've engineered our sprinkler system.
You got to rock and roll.
There's not even a building to demolish. There's some footings we got to get rid of, but we're ready to go. So
there are two issues that are not inconsequential, right? It's not just that they could put a fence in and you're out of luck. It's also that if they say no on the maintenance agreement and they decide they don't want to give you authority to mess with their property, it could deteriorate over time, right? So there are two significant issues. I'm generally in Mr. Jacobson's camp. I want to see you guys start moving this forward. I don't know how to deal with that issue as well.
That's forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to pop them if they come in and repave it and look better.
That's off the record, by the way.
No, I'm just saying, that's just.
We're not saying to do that, but
we're not saying
Is popping a legal term?
To be clear, there are maintenance and repair obligations, and a separate section that governs more significant improvements. We're asking for the asphalt repair portion to be involved in the regular maintenance and repairs that do not require transit's pre-approval and to go through the whole permitting process. So, we're fairly confident that we're going to be able to maintain this.
Okay.
And I think that's right.
My mind has been put at ease on that one, so I think, yeah.
No popping.
Right.
Did you consider?
Also legal.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
If, let's say you only have the 9.9 feet, and maybe this is a question for Marissa as well, can a safe entrance be made, since it is low traffic? From an engineering standpoint, would it, let's say they do take the property back because it's still safe because it's low traffic, did you consider that? Because if it's not safe, then you have a property that can't be accessed.
Mm-hmm. We certainly considered it. Mike Petrie can help us out, but we have thought of alternatives like coming up with a site safety plan with our neighbor Bob Silver and implementing one-way traffic, implementing just different ways to address this concern, because 9.9 feet is tight. And in Bob's approval, actually, from back in the day, it was contemplated that these parallel spaces could be removed. I don't know if I phrased that exactly right, but it was contemplated, this conversation about the unique conditions of both our properties, quite frankly, having this access.
But I believe that those parking spaces were part of site plan approval.
Oh, I totally agree. It was in there, but in the board's resolution, there is a consideration that it can be removed.
Oh, okay.
Well, because in the real world, in the unlikely event that this happens, among the people who will be objecting to the business continuing to operate will be the Montclair Police Department. And then they'll need to come up with a solution. They'll be back here for approval of whatever that solution is. So I mean, it'll be all right because it has to be all right because otherwise you've got a landlocked building with people storage in it that they can't get out. I mean, it'll be okay, but it'll take another approval of a significant change. But so I don't think it's going to happen. But I mean, if it did, that's the issue. But they're doing this with their eyes open, and okay.
But let's say it happened now.
Mm-hmm.
Could one design something that's safe? What would you do? What would you do to make it safe? So, I mean, are there other example properties in wherever where you've got kind of a busy road, train tracks right there, and with those two businesses with certain volume of traffic potentially exiting a 10-foot width, if there's some evidence that it can be made safe through some, electronics or some kind of flashing lights or something.
Yeah, respectfully, Tony, I think that's further
afield. Well, no, I disagree. I think that at some point, I think it's worthy to think about now if it does happen in the future, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything about mandating something now, but it would be good to know in general.
It also occurs to me that if they did something out of spite without a real reason for it, they might have Fifth Amendment problems. Because if they do it after it's built and they know what they're doing and they don't have a reason for it other than to screw around, that's a taking. But
this may have been covered in one of the prior hearings, but was there any consideration to just getting a small easement from Lot 7?
There certainly was every consideration. It didn't happen in the hearings, but we know Joe and his family that run that business, and we tried, but he did not think that at this point in time he was willing to give us anything. He was worried about his own zoning compliance.
Okay. Then what are we going to... we'll give site plan approval based on the conditional...
I would say that we would, subject to the finalization of an easement with New Jersey Transit, which was not for nothing part of our original approval on the assumption that it was already there. So what we would say is that this revised plan is acceptable to us once the New Jersey Transit easement has been obtained.
Even knowing that it's a cancelable thing.
Yeah, because he'll have it, and having it is having it. Right. And yes, they can cancel it.
And then what would happen to the site plan approval if they decide to cancel it? In the unlikely instance that they...
Well, so there's two. I think there's two questions in there. The first is what happens if they cancel it before the thing is built.
Oh.
In which case, I mean they won't, but I mean if they cancel it before it's built, I think chances are you'll be back here in a hurry with some alternative. The more likely of the more likely of the two unlikely events is that it's 10, 12, 15 years from now, in which case there's nothing that we're going to do for that once they do that, I think that the 9.9 feet is going to, or whatever it turns out to be, probably won't be enough for them to operate. They're going to have an existential problem, and they're going to know that it's coming, and they're going to come back to our successors after we're long gone and say, maybe John won't. John's going to be forever.
Sitting here then.
Yeah.
You're not planning this for the next 30 years. That's not in your...
Right.
So the site plan approval is still valid with a 9.5?
Well, the site plan, because we will approve them to build this, and then the site. I mean, it's not a question of the site plan approval. It's a question of, I mean, Transit's going to come along and change.
I guess we're approving it because it has more than 20 feet right now. Like right now, it's okay, it's safe because it has 20 feet.
Right.
So if it's not 20 feet, is the site plan still valid?
If it's less than what we approve, I think that they have a problem. That they're going to be cited for an enforcement violation.
So the site plan would require the 20 feet, and
the site plan will require what they are showing to us right now
with the easement. Yeah.
And if it changes in any way, then I think the police or enforcement is going to go out and say, hey, you guys got approved for 20 feet, but now you've only got 9 feet. You can't operate like this.
I think they will have several problems, of which the planning department is the least important. But, yeah.
Okay.
Isn't there some incentive for transit to approve that, since you're paying them for basically land that they're not making any money on now?
I'm just saying
I don't know.
the wheels of transit
They're
literally
weird.
and figuratively spin in weird ways.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you just, in 15 years, who the heck knows? So, but it is, I mean, everybody's doing this now with their eyes open. And I think that answer that Art just gave to Tony is the right one, which is that were they to come in the middle of the night and put up a fence, from the minute that happens, there are a number of issues of which nonconformance with the site plan is, as I say, probably the least important, but they're all significant because they've got an existential problem.
The biggest problem is Mrs. Jones can't get her property
That's
out,
exactly
right?
that's among the many problems that they have. Yeah.
That sounds very reasonable. We appreciate it. It was unfortunate what occurred, and we relied upon a survey that was sealed by a surveyor who's no longer on the job. But we recognize there were some problems with that, and so we appreciate your time and effort. We're agreeable, I think, to that condition. The only thing we ask is if we can at least have an understanding where we could file the building plans, even though a permit won't be issued. I don't know if that's strictly
No, I think
your part of,
I think the way you articulated it, which is you don't get a COO without the
that's better for us.
without the easement is okay.
That's
I mean,
better.
if
It's very clear.
Because again, you're doing this all at your own risk.
That is correct.
So that's okay with me. If it's
So,
okay with you.
it will be tied to the certificate of occupancy,
Okay.
which gives you the ability to move forward.
We appreciate that.
Mrs. Jones can't get in.
Do we need another
better
motion?
get
Well, hang on.
You can't get in without the time.
We got a few things to do before we
Yeah, we
go.
got a public.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public of either of the two witnesses that have testified so far? You're not the public?
No, I am from the Montclair local.
Okay.
I knew that.
Welcome. I did not. I see unfamiliar faces in the audience, and I assume the public's here. Okay, there's
Listen,
no public.
you are public. Just remember that.
I'm new on the job.
Do the short straw.
Everybody else was
She's going to be done
That's
before
critical to a democracy.
Public comment is over. Yeah.
Okay, so there are no public comments then. Excellent. Anything else from you all, Mr. Skolnick?
No.
So I will formally move that
Thank you.
we adopt this amended site plan, subject to the condition that the certificate of occupancy shall not be issued unless and until the easement from New Jersey Transit is secured and the entrance is the width that has been specified all along on both the initial and the amended site plan.
Second. And it's testified to
And it's
this
testified
evening.
to this evening. Second
Yes,
by
second.
everybody.
I second.
Second from Ms. Carroll, or Ms. Wells. excuse me.
Screaming Lord.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? This is a great project. It's a great use of space.
Great use of space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We appreciate your time.
I was like, did you need anything else?
I think we're okay. We're okay. We have to.
Do we have any committee reports?
Hell no.
I don't have anything else to report.
Okay.
Anything coming down the pipe we should know about?
The re-examination.
The re-examination? Anything else of interest?
Conforming with code at the time, the width, right?
And I don't think we have any bills.
Inside.
Bill.
No bills, so I would move to adjourn. All those in favor?